Angelo, thank you for your time. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to your childhood. Can you please tell me about your experience as a child with music? And then at some point you ran into Ida Presley.
As a child, I had no experience with music because I lived on the countryside near Vercelli, my originary town, devoted mainly to the cultivation of rice. So my childhood had no music, if not the bird song, and few chances of listening to popular music which was played during the fests. I met music at the age of 10, 9 years and a half, on 1951, when my father, who was a horse breeder, brought me to a town in Emilia for his business, and he wanted me to accompany him in order to learn the office. On the night, it was during the spring, I was allowed to go for a movie near the inn where we was hosted, and casually I entered a concert hall where Ida Presley gave a recital of hers. I was totally unaware of music, let alone classical music, of guitar, but I was so terribly impressed by that event that on the spot I decided I would devote my life to the music and specifically to the guitar. And I did, so I'm here 62 years after. I have been faithful to that project, and this is all my life. I have been formerly a student of guitar and cello in parallel for 3 years, since '54. Then I abandoned the cello and I concentrated on the guitar, and I gave my first recital on '58, and immediately after I started studying composition with an organ teacher who taught me harmony, counterpoint, fugue, and so on. I was also a student, and I stopped my concert career on '81. Since then, I decided to devote my activity to composition, to musicological search, and to the study, to a scholarship of guitar music history. And also to teaching, of course. I entered the conservatory as a professor. And this is all. Since then, so a very simple life, marked by, so as to say, a revelation, no?
Right,
So
an insight that
yes, just
fascinating. There's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start, because we could talk for hours and hours. Talking about revelations, at some point you met Krishnamurti in Sanem.
Si. I went there for playing a concert, and after the concert, which was in the late afternoon, the organizer kindly brought me a bit around, and he told me, let's go and meet a person which might be of interest to you. And we went to that big
Tent.
tent,
Yeah.
And the lecture of the philosopher was already at an end. It was finished already. A few people were there. And he was sitting in the attitude of a meditation.
On the chair, on the stage?
Si. And we went there, and the man who accompanied me was familiar to him, because I have been told later, at that moment I didn't know who he was, and he was familiar with him, and he approached him, and he told us something.
Here's Mr. Gilardino, concert guitarist.
No, he didn't say anything of this, and that man, without glancing at me, said simply, don't leave prepared behind your talent. Live as you were. You had no special talent, and you will live better. You will know more about yourself, about the world, about life, and so. I understood that at that moment I was tremendously concentrated upon my doing as a musician, and my wisdom, my low outlook about life was a very small, restrained one, and he did that without glancing at me, just perception, and then he stopped talking, and the meeting was finished there in a few seconds. But those seconds were very relevant to me, because since then I started a search about myself. Incidentally, at that epoch I was seriously ill of an illness of uncertain origin, but a systemic illness. And this was the starting point for a reflection about myself that a few years ago brought to the conclusion that the life of a concert player was no longer suitable to me. And I left it, and I entered the full-time activity as a composer.
This is a very interesting subject, because a lot of musicians separate music from their life, in the sense that they're competitive, they want to achieve, and then they sometimes forget the purpose. Like Bach says, the aim and final purpose of music is nothing but the glory of God, in his words.
Yes.
I know that you also recommend to your students learning about themselves. You even recommended books to them at some point.
Yes, I did, not only by him, but to try to understand that ego is the worst.
It's the enemy.
Planning our life, and that music is an expression which is transcendental in the respect of the person who makes it. And for music we need three basic. We need three basic.
Three basic components.
It's a three-cornered hat music. The composer, the interpreter, and the listener. And none of them is more important than the other one. And none of them should exceed his part. The composer should create the music. The interpreter should perform it, and the public should receive it. A good composer without a good interpreter is nobody. A good interpreter with no music to play is nobody. And both of them, without an audience, they are nobody. So music is a circle, is something going around. No? Krishnamurti used to say, love is not yours or mine, or no. We have a chance, a possibility to enter in that circle, or to separate ourselves from that circle, staying outside. How? Me, I, me, mine, me. If we understand that this is a limit, this is an artificial and silly limit, then music takes another significance, another value, and it becomes something really belonging to existence, not separated from it. Here the man, since then the musician. This is unrealistic, and it is silly, simply silly. And it is the source of a lot of conflict in and outside.
Yes, yes. Yeah, as you brilliantly put it, Krishnamurti also refers to this in that the ego is made from thought, and thought by its very nature is fragmented, it's separative, it brings division because it's limited.
I have to say one thing on this subject. In my search about not myself as a central point, but myself as a part of the... I discovered that when I was a kid, I had that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, during the summertime, I had found a way to approach those birds which stay silent and immobile in the rice fields. White birds. I don't know the English name. In Italian it is airone. They are philosophers among birds, and they stay hours and hours, like
in a meditative state.
Yeah, meditative state. And I have found a way. They are very shy of humans, so I have found a way to approach them without
scaring them away.
Yeah, scaring them away. And I used to stay hours at the shadow of a tree observing them, very close, not distant. And it was a magnificent state that, which only in recent years, as an old man, I have been able to
go back to
see,
okay.
to recover in myself, and this is an horrible point to me.
Reminds me of Picasso, who said it takes a long time to grow young.
The ideal state of a musician is that of a child who has developed a strong capacity of expression, but who has remained inside a child.
Right, right.
If the man has eaten the child, there will be no art.
Beautiful. Yes, yes, yes. Krishnamurti used to say, since we talked about him, he says, where there is the self, there is no love.
No, in fact.
Where there's thought, there is no love. Because these are different movements. Love is unlimited, and music is from that field.
Yes, of course.
About the triangle, the quality of the listener. I mean, I heard this from you years ago, and it was a very profound insight that you proposed, and it's so true. And what I found out also is that the quality of the listening affects the quality of the music which is being played.
Surely, it's a circle. When you play a concert in front of the audience, the direction of the music is not just and only from the player, from the composer to the player, from the player to the audience, but the attitude, the presence of the audience makes a sort of feedback on the music. This is why each concert has a different story.
Yes.
Because according to where the acoustic, for whom we play, a public which makes a sort of collective
mind
represent.
Right.
Yes. If I take the single person and the other single person sitting in the first row, perhaps I am not inspired to play. But if I take the whole of the audience, if I play for people, I am not inspired. But if I play for humanity, then I am inspired.
Right. I have a very interesting quote, which is, I was trying to go through your quotes last night. I wasn't sure if you were doing this interview, so I wasn't really well prepared. And I wanted to go through the file of quotes of yours, which I've collected over the years. And it's a very long file, and it's full of gems. I follow composing not for people, for humanity.
Humanity.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
People are a series of I. Humanity is mankind, the project. What I believe in is humanity. What I see is people. So if I plan to write music for people, I am unavoidably pushed to write successful music, pleasant music, how to say, in a way, it's a trade, it's commercial music.
Yeah.
But if I write music thinking of what I would dream of for humanity, peaceful, sensitive, respectful, free from conflicts, free from aggressivity, then I write the music. And no matter if the current surface of reality seems not to allow, of people seems not to allow to believe in humanity. I mean that the further step is humanity. We can see even in the face of the delinquent of a project of humanity, no? If we are able to separate from the person which has been condemned to the electric seat or so on, his suffering, and we look inside in him, we see it.
Absolutely.
We can see it.
And there's compassion.
Compassion is a way of saying, you and me, we are not that distant. You made a crime, I didn't, but you had a kind of sufferance, and I had a different kind of sufferance. So you have produced that, but I will not judge you for it. I rely upon what I see in your eyes when you don't think of anything, when you are in a moment, 10 seconds in 24 hours, when you are free from that.
So which is to look at people without an image. Without in the present.
Without a pre-built image and without any sort of judgment. The terrible thing, which I try to dissuade my students from, is that of feeling better and higher and more important and more relevant to somebody else. Not even a fly should be considered inferior. I recall one day during a master class, the students of mine suddenly was sitting as a listener, suddenly jumped from his seat and killed with a violent gesture a spider. And I stopped the master class and I said, do you know, now at that moment, somebody in his family or in her family will be waiting for him in vain. And you didn't take any profit from doing that. You didn't improve your life or anybody else's life. You simply you simply obey to a fear. It will kill me, so I have to kill him. But he didn't aim to kill you. He was simply doing his duty, no? He was preparing his sensitivity is something that we all have, provided we are able to get free from fear and from instinct of possession, of
Right.
wish. If we are able from that, we are all sensitive. Sensitivity is something that when we are children, we all are sensitive because we have yet to build up an ego and a series of targets.
Right. So this possessiveness, and also I think you're referring to craving.
Yes, aggressivity.
Yeah.
This is something, this is nice, then it will be mine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is nice. Stop.
Right.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
In fact, Krishnamurti talked at length about this, about the whole process of desire.
Yes.
You have the first sensations.
But it is strictly associated with fear of dying. No, I am afraid of dying, so I have to improve my powers.
Mm-hmm.
And the simplest way to improve my powers against death is achieving a lot of properties. You know? So
Yeah.
I know that I am here for living 80 years, more or less. No. 80
Hopefully, in
years.
your case, 120.
No, suppose.
Right,
80 years is the average age nowadays, no? Okay, then, in these first 80 years, I will be allowed to accumulate all what I will need for the following 10,000 years without any income. So I can understand the anxiety, you know, of accumulating, because mind surviving for 800 years without an income, well, I need a lot of accumulation. So, you know, like a bear during the winter. No,
right, hibernating.
But we don't know anything. We know absolutely nothing about our tomorrow. So, good, when you have what you need. World has been made for offering us a survival,
right,
but not for offering us a payment of our aggressivity. No, world is not rich enough for that. It's too delicate, too weak, too beautiful, not to tolerate this. No, and then mankind is something which looks after this. Wise people tend to transform the world into an endless source of wealth. But this is not.
Right.
This is simply this is.
Yeah.
And we are paying the price.
Yeah. And just to add to what you just said beautifully, is that it's also not meant for giving us psychological gratification, a sense of being somebody, you know.
One says that my music is great. Okay, my music is great, but it has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's wrong. First, my music is not great at all, but it is not a guilt of mine. I did the best, of course, of myself, but I am not sure that my music is great, and I do not want to be. I want to be only convinced that my music in that moment was kept from a transmission, from a broadcast, no?
Yes.
Coming, and it was codified, and encrypted.
Solidified.
So I have translated it into an accessible language. I am no more than a receiver. A receiver and a translator. This is okay. When I did that, my music is great, yes, but actually it is not mine. I have given the form is mine, but not the substance. You know.
Yes.
It is mine because I wrote a concerto instead of painting a picture.
Right.
In this sense, formally is mine, but what comes from and where it comes from is not mine at all. This is not a way of saying it. This is the truth. I experiment each day, and also in front of the music, even my music, I do not I do not feel authoritative. I accept interpreters, how to say, contribute, because they do a lot of things with my music which I have never seen in my music. They so better than me. Do you remember Toscanini, no?
Yeah.
Arturo Toscanini, when Maurice Ravel went after a concert in Paris in his dressing room, and he told him, well, you conducted this piece, Bolero, too fast. And Toscanini answered him, Maestro, you don't understand anything about your music. It seems just a gag, no?
Right.
But it is something very deep.
Profound, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't like that piece that much, right?
No.
I know that.
Neither Ravel did. Neither Ravel did.
Right, right.
Okay.
About the money, so yeah, we don't want to use it. It's not enough, and it's not meant to quash or quell your sense of cravings and possessiveness. Also, it's not meant for making you feel like you're somebody, giving you psychological gratification. And I think you agree that it's important to be nothing, psychologically.
Exactly. Feeling nothing is the best way of getting in the circle of everything. Huh?
Then you're riding the wave of
Yes,
this other movement of love and music.
See, children do not feel anything special.
Right.
When I was 5 years, 6 years, I could stay a whole afternoon sitting in the water, with my feet in the water and a little, say, river. Mm-hmm. I stay there and looking at clouds. Mm-hmm. For me, clouds were extremely fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I stayed there for hours and hours. Mm-hmm. And the good, what I realized was that I didn't feel any different from the cloud.
Right.
This was.
Yes.
I perceived, I didn't perceive any difference. My problems began when I felt somebody else or something else from the clouds. Right. And it took a life to go back to that situation.
Right. The sense of self developed. Bundles of memories.
Yes. One day during a chat on internet, an idiot told me, but this reaction of yours is childish. and I understand. I answered him.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yes, you're too stupid to understand what a great acknowledgement you did to me. Exactly. This is the gift of the day. Please go on.
Right. It's interesting. Another story I was reminded of in Egypt. They discovered a few years ago, a boat which brought the dead king from Aswan to Cairo. The king was buried there, and then the boat was also buried there, because he thought, when I come back, I will ride it back to Aswan. Also, another story is somebody that I know had a friend who was very rich, and he had these cupboards full of gold. And when he was dying in his deathbed, he said that, open this so I can have one more look at my gold. But they can't take it with them. That's the problem. I remember you composed a tremendously beautiful piece for me, Canzoni Dimenticate, which you said you did as an entertainer or as a... I think you said... I'm going to edit this up. This was based on a dream that I had. One night I dreamed of playing the Romance with cello and guitar at Brockwood Park, out of all places. And I woke up and I called you. I said, is this even possible? And a few days later you called me and you said, well, I wrote it for guitar and cello and viola and violin and oboe. And the funny thing is that this was so successful, this piece. I've had hundreds, if not thousands of people write. You've seen some of those. saying, complimenting this piece. It's so beautiful. There was a lady who said, I wanted to make sure when I'm giving birth to my baby, this music is played. And the interesting thing when you're talking about interpreters, a couple of the interpreters who were really top-notch, as you know, you were happy with their work. When they first saw the notes, they were like, oh, that's a wrong note. I said, I said, no, it's not a wrong note. Just play it and see what happens. In fact, I think I asked you once, and you said, just have them play. And after a while, they were like, oh, this is really nice.
See.
And probably because you were a cello player, because that cello piece, especially the one which came from the Dream, that's especially beautiful. And my friend Stefania Verita, she did a great job. About students and ego. Last night, as you remember, we were talking to this lady from Turkey who's in the conservatory, and all over the world conservatories are the same way. They're very competitive. And I've seen it. I've gone also to conservatories. Didn't have a degree, but I went to classes. It's really cutthroat. She said last night, I feel like a racehorse.
Yes.
And I immediately introduced her to you because I know you have a great philosophy about the subject of competition and comparison. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, you know, conservatories belong to the system. No? So, in many occasions, in many classes, they teach the right thing for the wrong purpose. The right thing is music. Right. The wrong person is promoting those who make music to a level of excellence, of power, of success, of being the number one, the American rhetorical. Right. I am the number one. There are no number one. Each of us.
Well, it's silly to compare, right? Because before you compare, you have to measure.
Yes.
How do you measure?
This is logical, but philosophically, nobody of us is responsible of being or not being talented. One is talented, the other not, is less talented. Which is the merit and where is the guilt? No?
Right, because somebody may be talented in one thing.
Which is the point is giving to everybody in the school, since when they are children, a chance to exploit the little or the big talent they have the best way. And which is the best way? The simplest, with less obstacle, with less mistakes, with less without troubles, no? And then a small talent will be happy about her small talent, exactly as a big talent. The difference is in the result, but not in the person. So, as I told you already, if one feels proud about the music, he has not yet reached the stage of really, is not really inside. As a player, if somebody listening to you, if your listeners think that you are very good, you are not good enough. Because when you're really good, they won't realize that you are good. They will simply absorb music in the way I told before.
Right.
And why? If you look at Mona Lisa, do you think that Leonardo was a good painter? No, it doesn't happen to me. But even more, even closer to us, no? If you open your window in a day, in a sunny day like today, and from your room you open your window and you look at the landscape, when looking at the landscape, do you think, well, the window is very good? No, I don't think of the window. I think of the landscape. Yes. No, yes. I find it really silly to observe that an open window is beautiful. Is an open window is important. No,
right.
A performer is an open window on the music. A composer is an open window on the music yet to be written. And a listener is the person which makes, give a property to the existence of the window. A window without somebody who looks through it.
Right. I remember a story you said that after one of your concerts you went to a restaurant customarily.
Yeah.
And the owner of the restaurant, and at the end they said, please play a piece.
See?
And at the end the owner said, oh, I can play that.
Yes. The chef who came to receive our congratulations for the splendid meals asked me in change to play a piece, and I played that piece. And at the end he was so inspired, he said, give me your guitar, we play it, me too. You know?
You made it look so easy, right?
Because there was no nothing special in
it was just the open window.
in what I did. It was just an open window, so it was accessible to him, you know. This is a significant expression, example of what I mean, really, no?
Yes, yes. Would you like some water?
No.
So back to competition, though, it's a big deal in the guitar world. You know, they have a lot of competitions and stuff, and also in the conservatories, and it's a little bit destructive. I think
not a little bit, it's tremendously destructive.
Tremendously destructive.
They use the right instrument, the right thing, music, in the wrong way, for the wrong purpose.
Right.
And it is really destructive. But sometimes, you know, in competition, it may happen that the best one comes as a winner. Juries are sometimes unhonest, and other times, in other instances, they are ignorant, not competent. But when they are incompetent and unhonest, at the end, the best will come up as a winner.
What do you think?
Paradoxical.
Right. This reminds me of the Amanda Knox trial.
No?
Did you hear the verdict?
No.
You know the story of this American girl who was convicted of killing the British girl in Perugia?
No, I have...
Okay. But yesterday, Italy's Supreme Court said that she was not guilty.
No.
After a tremendous amount of circumstantial evidence against her. Okay, life goes on. Done a tremendous service to the history of guitar, not just as a composer, but also as an editor and rescuer of many. Can you speak a bit about that, please?
I always thought that the main problem of the guitar was the repertoire, quality and amount. No? So whilst I was creating a new repertoire gave my contribution as a composer, new music, I thought that it would have been important to rescue the music, the existing music which was buried under the dust, no? And I found a way, and I rescued a lot of music, even because Maestro Segovia, before dying, he had given a sort of disposal that all of his archive, containing a lot of music written for him, should have been published with my work as an editor, and so I was entrusted by the family, by Mrs. Emilia de Segovia and by Dr. Carlos Andres Segovia to take care of the publication of that music, and it was a great experience, mine. Yes.
Congratulations and thank you on behalf of history.
Yes. But it was amusing, you know, because when working as an editor, you should sometimes you have to work as a detective. No, you find a manuscript has no signature. And you have to understand who is the guilty. So, Agatha Christie, to go to this corner, who is the guilty, and so a lot of comparison with hundreds or thousands of manuscripts to to find the similarity, the identity of the composer. And this is really a detection, a work of detection. See.
And the notes themselves, do you find sometimes there are missing notes that you have to
Oh
fill in?
yes, working on a manuscript is like entering in the jungle, you know.
Right. The popularity of an instrument can be supported only by the repertoire written for it. This is what you said to me before. And of course your own compositions these days are played a lot, right? We see more and more and more. So it's a big contribution of new, fresh blood.
See.
You can train a good guitar to have the sound you want. This is what you told me before. And it's so true, I found this out. It's between your ears and the wood.
Yes. It's a matter of... a guitarist has an affinity with any guitar, with all the guitars existing. But identification, totally identity with a guitar, complete identity, is a miracle. And it should be pursued. You should look for that instrument. Segovia, when he found the perfect guitar for him in 1913, the Ramirez built in the Ramirez workshop by Santos Hernandez, he played it until it was
destroyed.
Then he met a Hauser, no? And he played it until when he destroyed it with checking against a microphone. See. And then, so a perfect instrument should never be dismissed, because here too is a matter of feedback. No, the instrument, the player influenced the instrument and is influenced by his instrument, is a sort of living character, the instrument. And so when you try out a guitar, you should understand, so as to say, impersonally, no? Yes. Check up all the notes, which are, no note is missing, so as to say, falling down suddenly. And when you have reached that level of, so as to say, impersonal, then you have to decide whether it sounds with yourself or not. A very nice guitar, which you have considered excellent by all means, cannot match yourself. And the less perfect guitar can match yourself, depending from
the chemistry.
Yes,
in some ways.
It's you have a series of frequencies inside yourself, no? And the guitar has a specific series of frequencies inside. So, and to be able to catch this is something you must be tremendously alert, and this is what I mean. No?
Would you also say that if you take a well-built guitar, and your ear demands a certain sound, and your finger tries to bring that out, I found out that the instrument responds. And physically, it's actually in the vibrations of the sound make grooves in the wood, right? So it's almost like an alive thing. The guitar is almost alive.
Absolutely. This is so much, because after 3 years that you play guitar, that guitar is yourself. It's not that you own the guitar. No, you are.
The guitar is your ears.
You have selling a guitar is always like selling a part of yourself. Do not sell any guitar, possibly.
I told this to Angelo recently.
Do not sell. Buy guitars, but do not sell.
And it's good to have different guitars, right? Like they have different sounds, different.
Yes, one for each hour of the 24 in the day.
like wives, right? I'm just joking.
I am not in a position to give you confirmations about that.
No, it's just a joke. But Ida Presti was quite amazing. This silky sound.
She was connected with somewhere else.
She was 13. I have a recording of her when she was like 14 or something. Just incredible.
She was.
You've written a book or an essay about how to pick a guitar. when you want to. Yeah.
Sì,
What are the
not a book,
characteristics?
a chapter.
A chapter, yeah. So can you just highlight some of the top points about this?
First, you have to tune the guitar. But even before, you have to try out the guitar in the most complete silence. If you have noises like in the exhibitions around, you aren't trying a guitar. So don't play a piece, because if you play a piece, you are simply transplanting on the guitar all the attacks which you are used to with your guitar.
Right.
It's a matter of microseconds and of microdimensions, but you are playing your own guitar, your preceding guitar. So play each single note and listen to it. All the notes on all the 6 strings, and take notes of notes which are missing, which immediately after they fall down, they disappear, they are not usable. And you know, if you have one of these notes on the 5th string on the 17th fret, no matter.
Right.
But if you have it on the 1st string on the 4th fret, or on the 9th fret, this makes the instrument unusable. You will never see a pianist which accept to give a concert on a piano which is a D flat mute. No.
Yeah.
No. And so this is the first thing. Then you have to test other points. For instance, it's typical of guitars on the 5th string, on the frets from 9th to 12th, to have the beginning of the note from the starting transient to the first period, okay, but then the fundamental note disappears and only the octave in form of an harmonic follows.
I see.
So
it's not good.
No.
You want a good solid G.
G, and harmonics should be present, but for giving color to the tone, not to replace the fundamental.
I see.
Right.
Right.
So if you say wing, then careful on the 6th string, open 6th string, play it, and try to measure how loud is the D sharp, 2 octave and the major third upper. The same note which you could produce on the 1st string, 4th flat.
G sharp.
G sharp.
Right.
It always accompanies the open string, the open 6th string. But if it is too loud, then you can play in E minor.
Sorry, you play
the open 6th
string, and then you listen for a G sharp.
G sharp. If this D sharp makes a bichordal figure with you can play in E minor.
So you don't put any other fingers?
No, just
only open string. Got it.
Each note you play has harmonics.
Right.
But if the relative intensity of that D sharp is too loud, you can't play, except in
Right.
This is very.
So you want the G sharp to be quiet.
To be present, but not obtrusive, so that if you play, after you play a G natural 3rd string, they don't conflict modally.
So what are the other notes that are in that open E?
The octave,
harmonics?
The octave, the 5th, another octave, and then the major third.
Okay.
A 10th, so as to say, a double 10th, so as to say. And then all the other ones, but they are not perceptible as individual frequency. They are perceptible also only as a mixture with the fundamental to make its color.
Right. Some of the greatest people I've known in my life have been weary of the world and people who bother them and stupidity.
Yes.
And I remember this was also a theme at some point for you because you were bothered by other people.
Quite a lot.
There's this expression in English, it's called the tall puppy syndrome.
See, these are very, very, very... Well, from a certain moment on, you begin to understand which is their point, and you feel compassion also for them.
Right.
So,
there's also jealousy is a big part of it.
frustration. They are frustrated people.
Comparison.
Yes. They believe you have been successful in something they have failed.
Right.
And also to tragical epilogues.
Yeah, well, like what I experienced, right? On the message board, the guitarists who had gone for a long time without... They were comparing themselves. Why compare? And I come out of nowhere with the CD, the music you wrote for me, and it was a big success. So, just jealousy and also prejudice. I come from Iran and all this.
A lot of violence.
Yeah.
This is all under the seal of violence.
Yes. And people these days think because it's the internet, you can do this violence and get away with it. But
when you will have switched off this, I will tell you something about this.
A great quote. If McDonald's is food, this is music. Thank you very much, Angelo.